Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Our guests today have been on the show before. They create amazing, delicious, SOS-free recipes, and today they are going to make cupcakes, chocolate cupcakes with chocolate frosting without any refined sugar, oil, or salt. Please welcome back to the show, Be Green with Amy. Great to see you guys again.
Hi, greetings everyone. I'm so glad to be back with Chef AJ. You know, today's a charm because this is our third time. 3 times a charm, but third time. And I'm saying our because I have my one and only lovely, handsome husband, Rick.
Hi, everybody.
So we're here today and we're really glad to be here, Chef AJ.
Well, I can't wait. You guys are in Florida, right?
Hi, AJ. Yes, we are.
Hi, Rick. Nice to see you. In case people haven't seen you before, you got an amazing transformational story, a before and after, if you will.
Yes, we do. I'm going to even share my screen so you guys can see, because you got to see it to believe it, right? So
yeah. It's amazing because you're a little one. You're tiny, Amy. I mean, you're petite. You're short.
I am, and this is our before and after. Back in 2012, we found Dr. Furman on PBS, and we adopted the lifestyle and haven't looked back. And I think we look younger, and we definitely feel younger. So this is just the way to go to eat with this lifestyle. And who says you can't turn back time? Because you really can.
I know you guys look amazing. And you know, it's interesting. You're carrying cups from Nathan. So I'm wondering if maybe in addition to the soda, you might have had like a hot dog or two there.
Absolutely. We are originally from New York, and whenever we visited New York, we always went to, I don't know who we were wanting to see more, the food or the friends and relatives.
Yeah, they got the pizza there. That's right. New York can be a dangerous place.
Exactly. But now they have so many vegan options there that they didn't before. So it really is a friendly place for plant-based people as well. So yes, that just shows that we were standard American people, but I thought I was eating healthy and just doing things once in a while for a treat. But it wasn't enough. And like you said, I am petite. And so even 10 pounds on my frame is big, but I lost, almost 25, 30 pounds. So that really is a very significant percentage of my body weight. And Rick lost over.
I lost as much as Amy weighs.
Now.
Well, actually more than Amy.
Yeah, more than I weigh now. But anyway, yeah. So combined about, 130, 140 pounds. And you see, we're closer.
Yes.
You guys look amazing. I love that before and after. That is so great. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we just hope that it inspires people because you have your own story. You know, you don't have to be a superstar and you don't have to run marathons after it happens. Like some people say, oh, I run marathons. We don't run marathons. We're just regular people. And just be healthy.
Yep, absolutely. And you have delicious recipes too.
Yeah, we do. That was one of the things. We went SOS free, sugar, oil, salt free. And one of the things that Rick said is, I will adopt this lifestyle with you.
As long as the food tastes good.
Yeah, right. And I wish more men were like you, Rick, because what do they care if as long as it tastes good and they don't have to make it?
Well, it took a little while. I mean, my taste buds didn't change overnight.
I don't think anybody's doing that.
You have to change the recipes a little bit. I mean, there's so much salt inside of the foods that it's difficult.
Yeah, salt-free was a big challenge for us. So I was primarily the cook of the kitchen, but when we changed this lifestyle and I was trying to do the recipes and this was back in 2012, it wasn't as much, I was following you, Chef AJ, when you were with Chef and the dietitian. There weren't that many recipes to find. And it was difficult and I really used a lot of your helpful hints, but it was really difficult to find tasty food. So Rick said, you know what, I'm taking over the kitchen and I'm gonna make it, and he just experimented with things.
Once you find the spices that you enjoy and you like, you use them over and over again. And then you experiment with them. And then you go through the different ethnicities, Mexican, Oriental,
whatever.
Indian.
Yeah, all kinds of delicious flavors.
And then you combine them all together.
And now we're eating.
And you have some kind of fusion thing.
We're eating more delicious food now than we ever did before. And Rick is always coming up with something new.
Well, I look at recipes and I try to adapt them to the way that we eat.
I know what you mean, because like I don't think I loved my food as much when I was eating the other way. I mean, I thought I did because I was so fat, sick, and addicted. But every day I'm like, God, I get to eat this food. It's delicious. But I agree with you, Rick. I think salt is the hardest for most people.
Yes, I think so too. But once you turn this on to table taste.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah, and there's so many
table taste.
there's so many more wonderful seasonings now than there were 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
So many options. And now, I mean, some of the people that follow you are not doing chocolate at all. So, this recipe that Rick's
You can adapt it out.
You can take out the chocolate. But, for me, I was a big sweets fan and I really did like chocolate. And that was something that was difficult for me to give up. And this, if you are not in an addicted personality where if you have something in your house, you're going to eat it all. This recipe is really great for when you just want a little taste of something and just a little treat, or if it's your birthday and you want to make a cake or something like that. It's
great to bring to people's houses. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it.
Right.
And they all want the recipe, and then when they find out what's in it, they're like, what?
They go, huh? They don't know what's in it until after they've had it.
And that's what I say. Never tell people the ingredients or if it's healthy or vegan until afterwards.
That's exactly.
It's easy.
Right. So when we first found this recipe, it was something that we found on the internet, and Rick kind of changed it over a little bit.
I made it easier.
He made it easier to make, and he made it just different.
I think healthier too.
Healthier, yeah. And when we found it, it was a cake recipe, and we used to cut the pieces up really small and then wrap them up and freeze them so that we could just only have a little bit at a time. And what Rick loved about it was when he'd make this sheet cake, he loved the way the edges tasted better than the middle. So what he did was he said, if I make these into cupcakes, then all of the bites are going to have the delicious edge on them instead of just the perimeter of it. So that's what he did.
And then I turned them into mini cupcakes.
Right. And then he said, we're going to make them into mini cupcakes. And I love them because you can freeze them. And then you just can pop them in the microwave for like 20 seconds and they're just fine. They freeze great. That's what's so wonderful about these. So you can batch cook them and then freeze them.
Right. But you can make them into little sheet cakes too and stack them on top of each other and have layers.
Yeah. And it's got chocolate frosting too. So guys.
Or any kind of frosting.
Yeah. So they have beautiful cakes out there made out of watermelon chunks and fruit chunks and everything, and they're very decorative. But if you're looking for a cake that when you are having company or you're going over to someone's house that you want to make it, that it's like a real cake, this is it.
Nice. Well, I can't wait to see.
Yeah.
Okay, Amy pre-packages all my cake mix. So it's kind of like coming in a box. But what we do is we put them inside the bags and we keep them in the pantry. So all the dry ingredients are already pre-mixed. And there's about 6 of them inside it.
So it's kind of like what you do with your spices in the little spice jars when we make our little cake mix bags.
That's a great idea. It really is. It does save a lot of time.
Yes.
So it's made with carrots and beets. What you can do is buy this already frozen, pre-packaged. It's 10 ounces, and that equals about a cup, which is what the recipe calls for. And these are frozen, so you can always have them inside your freezer and available, so you don't have to have fresh beets if you don't need to. You can do the same thing with carrots. You can have frozen carrots.
Right, because they're not really cooked very much, the frozen carrots. They're just kind of steamed and then flash frozen. So it's okay to use them. And that's even those shortcuts, good shortcuts.
Yes. So you take your pre-packaged mix.
And oh, by the way, everybody, Chef AJ's providing the ingredients, the recipe. If you're on YouTube, you just click on that little thing that says see more, and it'll show all the links and you'll find the recipe there. So don't worry about having to write it all down now. Just enjoy the show and then you can watch the recipe later.
And with the beet, I cut off the very top because you don't want any, and also the little nib where the tail would be.
But this is not going to go to waste. It's going to go into our smoothie, the ends. So no worries
Cut
about
them
that.
into quarters because they go inside the food processor. Now, a lot of times I don't cut the ends off the carrots unless they look a little bad, but that's what I take to do. So you take it, you put it in your food processor, you put it on the shred, the largest shred.
this food processor has a really wide mouth. Well, it has adjustable mouth, but one of the settings has a wide mouth. So look at that. You didn't even have to cut up that meat very much. Okay, tell a joke, Chef AJ, while we make
Oh my God, tell a joke. Oh boy, you know, when you put me on the spot like that. Well, two carrots were driving down the freeway and were in a car accident, and one died immediately and one went to the emergency room, and the doctor said, I have good news and bad news. The good news is you're going to live. The bad news is you're going to be a vegetable the rest of your life. Because you had carrots there. But I think that's brilliant, making a cake out of vegetables, because cocoa powder will mask it, and it's a great way to get people to eat vegetables that wouldn't otherwise eat them.
Exactly. So that's a really, and like I said, there's no waste. We
So
don't
it's
peel,
just shredded.
and we don't peel the carrots because they're organic. So we just wash them, and it's so beautiful in color. You know how they say eat the rainbow and all that. So here you're already getting some beautiful reds and oranges in there. And don't be afraid of beets, guys. I just was talking to somebody who said that somebody told them don't eat beets. They have a lot of sugar.
And let me tell you, this recipe is so forgiving. You know, it says have a cup of this and a cup of that, but as far as the vegetables go, if you have a cup and a half or less, it makes no difference. So you turn around, you take that, and you just mix those together. And I let them sit for a little while.
So we already had the dry ingredients in there, and you don't have to worry about measuring everything out. As you saw, he just kind of threw it in the food processor and didn't worry. So many times I've heard with dessert recipes, you have to level off the cup, and you have to be very careful with the measurements. But this seems to be really forgiving, which is good for somebody like me, because I'm not proficient in the kitchen. Okay, so now go ahead.
Then I take 2 apples and I core them out. You throw them in your Vitamix. This recipe, in my opinion, it needs a Vitamix or a high-speed blender, a good one, because you want it. I mean, if it's chunky, it's okay, but this is where the
Right. If you're a newbie, you don't want to taste any of the little bits and pieces of the vegetables. If you're not a newbie, don't worry about it. But it's
well,
really
this is
better for.
what we put in the blender are all the fruits. That's the sweetness. So you put in. I should have cut these up before.
Yeah.
Time.
And what's nice also, we didn't bring it out, but we have one of those apple spicers, so you can always use that too.
That's what I
if
should
you like. And Rick likes to cut. This is his new knife that he.
Amy got me this for some kind of
present.
birthday, Christmas, holiday.
I tell you, he started out with average kitchen utensils, and then once we realized that we were committed to this because of the before and after, who wouldn't be committed to the lifestyle? Then we started to upgrade the different kitchen gadgets and so forth with gifts over the holidays and birthdays and everything. So you don't need all the fancy equipment, but I think if you're first starting out, a high-speed blender, I mean, Ninja's okay. Vitamix definitely.
So apples, pineapple. That's about a cup of pineapple.
The recipe's in the show notes, guys, so don't worry about it.
A banana.
And you want it to be pretty ripe.
Yes,
because
as you
it's
can
of
tell,
that
it's
sweetness.
got the brownness on it.
Yeah.
But even if it isn't ripe, it's still
Yeah,
good.
it's still okay. So look at all that healthy fruit that in all these.
I know, it's amazing. It's like so far, like I don't even see chocolate. I mean, this already sounds delicious.
Right. Well,
This is
the cake mix that we made ahead of time, it does have some cacao powder. You can use cocoa powder. I like cacao. I think I just like to say cacao.
Cup and a half of water, and then dates.
Stephanie says, is there any particular type of apple we should be looking for in this recipe?
No, whatever you enjoy. This one here that I'm using are Gallus. A lot of times I'll do the Honey Crisp or the Pink Ladies, but I don't believe that there's any.
Yes, I don't think it really matters.
I mean, you can use the Granny, but it'll come out a little
Tart.
Yeah, I was going to say the orange ones. Deborah would like to know, she sees oat flour as an option on your recipe. Does it come out as good as if you were to use wheat flour?
It's denser, so it's a little heavier, but it's delicious. And I've used the oat, but we for the pandemic thing, we bought a bunch of wheat.
We're like, we can't be without these cupcakes,
keep it
so
in
we
the
bought
freezer.
this huge thing of flour. Because
Right.
everybody was buying flour. I wanted to also point out that because we use organic, again, the apples, he didn't peel them, which is good because a lot of the nutrients are in the peel. So, and once it's blended, you're not going to even know that the peel was in there, and you still get the
Now,
nutrients.
it calls out inside the recipe for dates. So I provide these packages that are already made. It's 13 ounces of date paste. So I just take the date paste instead of the individual dates. Now, you could use this many of the Medjool. I think that's how you call it.
Medjool,
No,
yeah.
the Niagara, and this is the Medjool. So this is 12 ounces of Medjools, and this is 12 ounces or 13 ounces of the other dates.
Yeah.
So it's like 3.5 cups.
So on the recipe, it kind of tells you whichever way you want to do it, it'll give you the measurements.
Whatever you have available.
Yeah.
But this is, to me, is the easiest way to keep them. Then you just plop that in.
Yeah, makes it fun. And he's reserved this. This is going to be going into the frosting. So, but if you cut some and you're using it for recipe, we just put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the refrigerator, and it keeps for a really long time. And the fresh dates we try. Are you ready for another joke, Chef AJ? Because we're going to be blending soon. The dates that we get in the packaging like this, we try to keep them in the freezer, or the refrigerator to keep them longer. And I love this way of cooking because you can just keep licking your fingers and do tasting spoons and say, well, I just have to taste, and especially when you're making desserts like this. You don't have to worry about any of that cross-contamination from eggs and other things that people, and milk or whatever that other people put into their cakes and desserts.
So then you just take this and pour it in. And that's all the sweetness that you need. Now, I like to use some walnuts and raisins to give it a little crunchiness. So
we can show you kind of what it looks like so far. And this would be really fun to do with children in the kitchen, because then they could just dump everything in and mix and have fun with that.
I like those headphones you were wearing, Rick. Those are your Vitamix headphones, huh?
right, I keep them right near the Vitamix because it's a little loud.
We are going to live to be centurions, right, Chef AJ? So we're going to be using these high-speed machines quite a bit in the kitchen. We want to be able to hear everybody admire how youthful we look when we hit that age, and not be our hearing impaired because we were around these high-speed machines, loud machines so much. So yeah.
And then walnuts, and I put it in my little Ninja chopper. I used to just take it and put it in a plastic bag and then beat it down so that they would turn on. But you can buy them.
So this is kind of like the hand
So it turns into
machine
a
that
front.
you have that you zip things with. So if you have one of those, because fans of Chef AJ, you love that one that you have the pull string on. That's basically the same thing. But this one is, you can just tap it and it's electric. So, and we have links to all the gadgets that we use in the recipe. So when you go to the recipe, it'll show you all the things that we use in case you're interested. But these are just things, don't worry about it if you don't have them. Like Rick said, you can put the nuts in a plastic Ziploc bag and just tap on it with a jar, and it'll crush them up too.
But if you don't have one of these little Ninja choppers, you should get one, because they're only like $20, and I use it every day.
Yeah, we use it quite a bit.
Especially to make salads and things like that.
Yeah, I don't like to chop onions, so I just throw my onions in there, and all kinds of the root vegetables. I can just throw them in there and chop them up, because I like to chop up my big salads so that I don't have to chew as much.
So this is what it looks like. Looks like a red velvet cake.
Yeah, it does.
In fact, if you leave the chocolate out, you could call it a red velvet cake. If you leave the beets out and you use a little more carrots, you can make it into a carrot cake. So.
Right. So for those of you that don't want to use the chocolate, don't worry about it. You have all those options.
Now it comes out pretty moist, but it's. So I throw in some chia usually about a quarter cup. And because I want it a little bit more nutritious and the omega-3s, I put in some hemp seed. Gives it a little more crunch as well. I don't measure them, but it's about a quarter cup of each, so it's almost a half cup.
It's
And
in the recipe.
that'll firm them up a bit because of all the vegetables. This takes a little longer to cook inside the oven. I mean, most cupcakes, especially the mini cupcakes, it's like 20 minutes. This thing here, I've determined that it takes an hour. You know, on 350 on my convection oven, I put it on 325.
Your oven could vary, but yeah.
But I put it in there, I stick it in for an hour, I set the timer, it shuts off automatically, and I just leave it in there. And then it cools down. And then, you know, a couple of hours later, I mean, I can leave the house if I want to. A couple of hours later, it's they're ready to come out and it cooled.
Right, so I'll show you again, kind of what it looks, and I'll accidentally get my finger in there, so maybe I have to lick it clean, I don't know.
It's delicious. You can eat it just like that. No eggs or anything. I mean, it's like a pudding. So we put it inside of these little mini.
Yeah,
It's a silicone, which is wonderful. It's got a metal ridge, so it doesn't
Not wobbly.
flop on you.
right. And then when you can just pop out, you can pop out the,
Or you can put it inside a Pyrex and cook it. I put a little piece of parchment paper on the
Or a
bottom or a
silicone
sill mat. I don't have a sill mat this small, otherwise I have to cut it.
but that's your option, so that if you want to make,
You could put them in little spring form pans. You know, this one's shaped as a heart. I've made these little chocolate cakes, you know, for Valentine's Day, or
right, a personal.
you could double stack this and make it look real pretty with a little
Right.
vanilla type icing.
Or you can just put all of it in one of those gigantic sheet cake pans. So it's just like cake batter, whichever one you want to use.
So then I take a tablespoon and I just put them inside. These do not rise. Okay? They don't
So-
rise.
I love the silicone because it's so easy to clean. And people don't realize when you don't use oil, your cleanup is really much easier.
It really is. And I used to have regular cupcake tins, and I bought the silicone inserts, and they had the little ridges around them. And those were a little bit trickier to clean because this is such a moist cake that the cupcake was going into the ridges. And then when I found this, I was like, okay, this is it, you know. And sometimes I'll just put it in the sink and soak it with some water and then come back later, because it is a pretty sticky cake, but it won't. But it's very easy to clean. And so when after we bake it and it cools, we turn it inside out by pushing these things out inside out like that, and then we leave it that way so that we can clean it, you know, without having to stick your hand in each individual slot. So they clean up great. But just make sure if you do get one of these, any kind of silicone baking thing, I think some of them are inexpensive, but they don't have that steel reinforced edge on them. And then you have to put them on a cookie sheet tray so that they don't wobble around when you're trying to put them in and out of the oven.
You also have to be real careful picking them up, otherwise it'll flop over.
Yeah, they can be very, very unstable. So I recommend getting something that has if you can, to get something with the steel reinforced. We're using grandma's sterling silver spoons that I got a long time ago, but Rick likes them because they're kind of pointy at the end. But and it keeps a uniform amount. So he's basically, I don't know if you want to show how you scoop out some.
So I just scoop it out and I fill the bottom. You can see I fill the bottom first and then I build it up. This way I know that a good portion gets into that little stem. I guess it would be the stem of the cupcake.
Right, because they don't really rise. So he fills in the main part of the cupcake form there, and then once he fills that in, he'll take another scoop and then just kind of make a mound on top, and then it'll all stick together. And it's great because even the top part is silicone, so you know, sometimes in those other kind of muffin trays,
It makes a mess.
it makes a mess and it sticks onto it or whatever, and this doesn't stick onto it at all. So it's really nice.
So that's about it.
Well, that's it for the cake part, right?
Yes.
Do these freeze well?
Oh, that's the best part of it. That's the best part of it. These things here, knock it down a little bit. That goes in the oven for about an hour, 350, 325 in my case, but I use a convection. I vacuum seal my cupcakes. These are cupcakes, okay? And I freeze them, and they taste better after they're frozen than they do after they're cooked, in my opinion. And they stay moist, they're beautiful.
So we have grown-up kids, and they come to visit sometimes, and they're always looking in our freezer. What do you got? And they're all the time we give them some of these cupcakes too. And then when they have friends that they're trying to convert over to the lifestyle, that's one of the first things that they share with their friends, because their friends are like, oh, I don't know, could you eat that way? And you miss out on treats. And so they share that with their friends, and they say, what's in this, really? I think I want to consider this lifestyle. So
on the second one, I usually don't get 48, however many is that, 24, 6 and 6 and 6, 24.
yeah,
It's 48 with two of them. So I just go around the outside, because the outside ones seem to cook quicker than the inside ones. I don't know why that is, but that's the way that it seems to be.
right. So on the second tray, he won't fill up all of them. So he just goes on the perimeter. Kind of like when you're at the grocery store, guys, going around the perimeter.
That's right. Shop the perimeter.
And as you can see, it's this is something that would be fun to do. We really do like the cupcakes because, like I said, they all have that tasty edge on them. That when you have a sheet cake, the corners taste a little bit more fun. But you can make these in the regular size, traditional size cupcakes, or you could make it into all different kinds of things. But the great thing about having these cupcakes is that I just want a treat. I don't want a whole big piece of cake. I just want a little something. And for me, it used to be a trigger that if I would eat just a little bit of chocolate, it would send me, spinning around and wanting more. But now, I think that after time, for some people, you get to be to a point where you can say, oh, I don't feel like having that today. Maybe I'll have it tomorrow. But I really enjoy this. I don't feel bad about it. It doesn't trigger me.
Right,
You want me? Okay, so we like to get every day. So he wants me to see if I can get some more out of here. But this is just a really fun thing to do in the kitchen, And he's got it pretty down pat as far as You're welcome. See, I'm the sous chef. But I can make this. I have made this because when it has been Rick's birthday, I make it for him. So because he shouldn't have to
You've
make
made
the
this
cake.
before.
Yeah.
It's easy.
And some of the recipes that have a lot of ingredients, if you make them often enough, it's not a big deal. So, but this is so as you can see with the second one, it doesn't have enough to make that, so he just went around the perimeter, and he likes to just kind of lift it up and let it flop a little bit on the counter to just kind of compact what's in there.
Now, what you could have done was just stuck that inside of one of these.
Right.
And then you would have had a cake instead of the cupcakes, which is.
But the little ones are so cute.
Yeah, they really are, and they're just really nice to have around. So he's going to stick that in the oven, and but of course now, what would a chocolate cake or chocolate cupcake be without having chocolate frosting? So if you really like.
Well, the answer is what a chocolate cupcake is without frosting is a muffin.
Exactly. But there have been times when we have just actually eaten these without the frosting.
I don't even frost these anymore. I used to, but when I freeze them, I think they're delicious without the frosting.
I think it's because we neuro-adapt, where now if we have the frosting, we'll say, wow, that's good, but whoa, is that sweet?
Give me a plate.
So somebody
So this is because these things, this is a food saver, and it vacuum packs these. I put 5 inside of a vacuum pack at one time.
Okay, now these are frozen, but this is how they come out, right? He wanted to show you what it was like out of the freezer. These don't have the frosting, but you can put the frosting on them and freeze it, but that's what they look like. And they pretty much hold their shape.
They taste delicious.
And yeah, he didn't even heat it up. Show him what the inside looks like. Just
Well, it looks just like cupcake.
Yep.
You've got the nuts and the raisins. You don't even really see or taste the carrots or the beets. In fact, I have a woman, Beverly, she might be
I
watching.
hope Beverly's watching.
She doesn't like beets
Oh,
at
no.
all,
Oh, no.
but she loves these cupcakes.
She's plant-based, but no beets. And
These are good.
but this is the only thing that she'll make an exception for. And that's what's kind of nice if you want to sneak some vegetables into people that don't care for certain things. They're not going to know that these are in there. Now with the Vitamix, Rick didn't clean it out because he's going to be making the chocolate frosting.
No, you don't bother cleaning that because that's all good
Yeah.
stuff. So for the frosting, there's two ways that I make frosting. One is with beans, black beans, and the other way is with nuts. This is more fattening, but it's also creamier and more decadent.
Right, but we have an option for you for the bean-based one that doesn't have nuts if you don't want to have nuts.
You can
in
use
the frosting.
macadamia nuts, you can use cashews. My daughter is allergic to cashews, so even though I have cashews in the house, for the most part, anytime I make anything, it's gonna be frozen, and I don't know when I'm gonna be serving it. I use macadamia nuts, and they're delicious as well. So macadamia nuts, Brazil nuts, cocoa powder. And you use the,
And the recipe's gonna be in the show notes, guys, so don't worry about the measurements, it'll all be there for you. It's Chef AJ put everything in there, she takes care of you guys.
That's right. It's just they can only see show notes on YouTube. That's why I tell the Facebook people, hop on over to YouTube. That's where the action is.
That's where
so
the
then I
action
use the other third of the
of the date.
dates. And then I use some water. How much water? Okay.
I think so, a cup of water. This recipe has evolved over time, you know. I always think it's funny when people say, put in nuts and then put in nut milk in a recipe.
And then I put in a splash of hemp seed, which is not inside of these show notes.
Right, because you showed us, Chef AJ, that nut milk is just basically blended up nuts with water.
Yeah,
Why are you
exactly.
putting in nut milk and nuts? It didn't make sense.
Didn't make any sense to me. I was like, take almond butter and do this and do that. I was like, no, I'm just gonna put water in it. So now you can use a little cayenne pepper if you want a little, when a lot of people like chocolate with a little bit of heat. A quarter of a teaspoon of cayenne inside of this, it makes it just right.
Right.
Any more, you know,
It's a little overpowering.
right,
But
then
you
you
don't have
use
to.
the sweetness.
Right,
Now-
so if everybody in your house doesn't like cayenne and you do, then put the cayenne in and there will be more cupcakes for you, right?
So optionally, vanilla powder. I like the vanilla powder, it just gives it another
Yeah,
another
don't you like the
dimension.
vanilla powder, Chef AJ?
I love vanilla powder.
You can use the extract, but I don't use,
I never
I buy
did.
this vanilla powder and
Yeah, I never
It's
cared for the
delicious.
vanilla extract because it always had a funny taste, or it would have the imitation one. I just never cared for it. And then when I tried this vanilla bean powder, and you eat the dessert that has it, and you say, what's in there that's just giving it this rich depth of flavor, and you just try to figure it out. And I think that that's what it is. So even if you're gonna make oatmeal cookies, all kinds of things, I encourage you to try the powder. It is expensive, but you don't use that much, so it'll last you
It's
a long
worth it.
time. I think it's worth it.
kind of like the table taste. It's expensive, but it's worth it.
Right, and we're not going out to restaurants, so.
Even if you are,
well,
it makes
even-
no difference.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that we don't.
You want your
spend a
food to
lot.
taste good, that's what's
Okay,
important.
you ready for another joke, Chef AJ?
It's just that I'm not sure they can hear me over the blender, but I'll think of one. You can maybe do a little dance. If you guys haven't seen my video from last night, I'm having a contest. If you come up with the name of my book, you win a wonderful prize, a private 2-hour cooking class with me. But I can't accept names on social media. It has to come through that email to be fair, so that we have timestamps on them. So I hope you guys will submit a recipe idea and maybe watch that video because I show you the cover of my new book. So
Why I like these blenders. Powerful blender is really helps out a
So
lot.
it comes out nice.
Wait, offer Chef AJ, say you want to taste.
Want some?
Absolutely. Well, I think it does make it a lot smoother with a high-powered blender.
Yeah, and it's easier to blend as well. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if anybody has.
Yeah,
any.
let me look. I was watching the presentation, so not so much through the chat. Let's see. There must. Melissa says, have they said if Rick was into cooking before you guys became whole food plant-based?
I like the barbecue. I was a steak and ribs and that type of stuff.
Anytime we would go to an event where somebody was barbecuing, he would go over to the barbecue and kind of talk to the person. And then before you know it, he was the one that was taking care of it. And because everybody else usually charred everything and burnt things. So he always worked his way over there. So yeah, he's always been really.
Lasagna.
Yeah.
I'm Italian, so I make lasagna.
Well,
he
made the lasagna on one of your past broadcasts.
Right, I adapted.
So if you guys want to check that out, search on Chef AJ's channel.
I love making cookies and cakes and things like that. I make a really good cheesecake that's made with tofu. So tofu cheesecake.
Oh yeah.
It's delicious.
And that's another dessert that people taste it and they think that it's with real cheese. So yeah, but I mean, primarily I was the one that was home while he was out working. So I just wound up in the kitchen a lot, but he's always been a cook, but he really just took to this lifestyle. And I was so happy. I was really concerned because Rick really loves food and he loves things that taste good,
I like to eat.
Yeah.
My middle daughter is the same way.
Yes.
She's got that challenge. She really likes to eat.
But she's adopted this lifestyle, and oh my gosh,
she looks great.
She looks great. She's healthy, and she travels a lot, and she learns how to make it work. But she found, and I'm sure a lot of the people that are following you have found that for her, she can just do a baked potato, take a thing of frozen vegetables, throw it on, put a little vinegar on, and call it a day. She doesn't need to make food with all the extra flavors, and she's fine. But she does she still does cook, and she has a 3-quart Instant Pot, which works out for her. And she just makes it work. But she travels. She said she likes to share pictures of herself when she travels. And recently we were somewhere on the beach. And when you travel, sometimes it's a challenge to find these kinds of foods. But she carries cans of beans around with her, and so she had a can opener. And so she was on the beach and she had a can of beans open, and she was toasting us with her can of beans and then just eating it right out of the can. So, this is how it is, guys. If you are in this lifestyle for a long period of time, your taste buds neuroadapt. You can eat things that before you probably wouldn't be able to eat because you just wouldn't enjoy the flavors. But now your taste buds can really enjoy the, look, he's ready to froth. Wait, you have to show them what this looks like.
So here's the icing, and you can see that it's pretty thick, just like icing would be. You could always throw in some powdered, ground up chia if you want to thicken it up, or something else. So I take a butter knife, and then I just coat the top of it, and I stick it inside of this thing. This thing will hold. It's a Pyrex dish, which is what 9 by 18, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So I take these and I just place them inside of my Pyrex dish.
Or this is a large one. If you have smaller storage, Tupperware or what have you, you can do it that way too. But for us, because we batch cook to make this large amount, he just lines them all up inside of this one thing. Because especially if they're not frosted, then he'll vacuum seal them inside of that food saver bag. But if he is frosting them, then the frosting is going to kind of get mushed up.
It's all gooey.
So he'll freeze them first in one of these dishes, and then after they're frozen, then he can put them inside of the food saver bag or whatever.
I just lay them side by side like that.
Right,
and then it'll cover the whole thing. And in fact, all of them will fit inside of here. And if not, there's like a 6 left over. I throw them in the refrigerator and I eat them later.
Right.
And then I take these and I just put the lid on it. It comes with a cover.
It comes with a cover, yeah.
And then I put it in the freezer, freeze them up. And then after they're frozen, I'll take the food saver and I will
In the bag.
cook them in the bag.
And that's the great thing, because when they're frozen, even the frosting is kind of in a frozen kind of state. So they don't get mushy and so that when you take it out and it's,
That's good.
hey. See, I think isn't that one reason why people do like to cook? If they love to eat and they love the flavor of foods, you know, I mean, you could be cooking in the kitchen and preparing food, and then it's time to eat, and you're like, I'm not hungry, because you've been tasting everything all the time.
That happens a lot to me.
Hey, so here's a question from Carla. She says the frosting recipe in the show notes has nuts. Where can we find the frosting recipe with the beans?
Right. Well, what I'll do, I guess I didn't do that.
You know what? You can email her
Yeah.
and she'll email you back and give you the recipe.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, speaking of recipes, we have put together something just for you guys that are watching. It's we will email you 5 free recipes that Rick has made, and in the show notes, if there's a link that says begreenwithamy.com/join, but there's a link in YouTube that you can click on it. If you don't see it, it's begreenwithamy.com/join. If you go there, you give me your email address, I'm going to send you recipes that Rick has made. And also you can be on my list to get other things as well, but that will just get you some recipes going. And what I'm going to do is in that link that you have, that you're looking at the recipe for the frosting, I'm going to change that later on today so that it'll have another link for the no nut frosting recipe. So that this way you can do that as well. Or you can just scroll down to the bottom of that website there, my begreenwithamy.com website, and scroll for chocolate frosting.
And the black bean is very simple as well. It's just black beans, dates, a little bit of vanilla powder, I think 1 or 2 other ingredients.
Yeah.
And that's it, a little bit of water. I mean, a very little bit of water, and you put it in a NutriBullet or a small food processor or the Vitamix, but depends.
It is so surprising.
You can make it into a syrup, you know, where you squirt it on cherries
And
or strawberries.
Right.
And we have a recipe where the strawberries look delicious.
Yeah.
And it's got that chocolate, it's like a chocolate dipped strawberry. Wonderful.
Right. So we have one of those squeeze bottles, kind of like a ketchup bottle.
Mhm.
And so we'll put that chocolate bean recipe in there, and then lay out fresh strawberries and just drizzle that chocolate bean topping on top of it.
So anyway, I get the macadamia, and I buy the macadamia flour instead of the whole nut because it's cheaper.
It's basically ground up
And then I
macadamia.
buy dates in the big 3-pound bags,
Or he buys the date case.
right?
That's what he does, right?
We buy the hemp seed in the big 2-pound bags.
Right. We are a serious plant-based family here.
But then I store them inside of things like this that I use every day.
Right.
The pineapples I just got from the grocery store.
Yeah.
I use
but
a
these
half
are-
a can of these pineapples.
They're unsweetened, but you could use fresh also. And also you could get frozen pineapples as well. So
Or fresh.
Yeah, or fresh. So
If
there's just a lot of
this one was ripe, I might have used some.
some fresh, right? Just all depends on. So it's a very forgiving and adaptable recipe. Do you have another question?
I'm looking.
You can use all frozen stuff too. So it's not, it has to be fresh, it could be frozen. So you can have all the ingredients available to you all the time. You can scan, fresh,
Yeah, or you could even measure out the frozen ingredients in little separate bags.
and keep
as
it in the
well.
freezer.
Just pop that in with the dry ingredients.
Yeah, Monarch says, I don't think these would ever end up in my freezer.
You're right. That's the problem with them. But you can make, like I said, you can make cakes, you can make the minis. The minis are great because, I mean, I'll eat 2 or 3 of these and it's like 1 cupcake. She'll eat 1. She says that men burn fat a little bit
Yeah,
faster.
they just have to stand there and they're burning calories.
It's
right?
so unfair. That's because they got that darn testosterone. Yep.
But that's my problem. I have a sweet tooth. I like that. And I also make these oatmeal cardamom cookies. They're fantastic. They're
Yeah,
really, really
that's
good.
going to be in one of the recipes that if you sign up at the begreenwithamy.com/join, that's going to be one of the recipes.
Well, why don't you guys write a cookbook?
Well, that's what you told us to do the last time.
We got an ebook. We have an
And
ebook coming
we
out.
actually do have an ebook coming out. It is almost ready. It's some of the things are just kind of being tested as far as the recipes go. If you go on this list to get the email for the recipes, you will eventually get a way to pre-order. And wow, it has some really, I think it's great because it's an ebook that we can also
You
have.
can keep adding to it.
Right, and that's the thing with the ebook, if we decide to add more recipes to it, you're going to get them as we add on the recipes. So yes, you suggested that we would do that to make the book, and we took your suggestion because you have a very good sense for business and for what works with people. You have great ideas. You always have great ideas. So when Chef AJ talks, people listen. At least I do, right?
Like, like that commercial.
You remember. Yeah. So that's what we did. So guys, if you want to pre-order that, it's going to be coming soon.
All the recipes inside of that, in my opinion, if I went to a restaurant to eat them, I would go back to that restaurant over and over again and I would just order that. In fact, there was a restaurant that she went out of business during this time frame, but she made a borscht. And it was, to me, it was wonderful. She
wouldn't tell us the recipe.
She wouldn't give us, she said, after I retire, I'll give you the recipe.
So Rick was just experimenting in the kitchen until he could replicate.
So I got a borscht that tastes really good.
But then, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was talking about something else.
For not Valentine's Day, for October, Halloween, I take this borscht and I put these little fingerling potatoes in it. So they look like little fingers.
Floating in
so
the
they
blood.
float up like people's fingers were chopped off inside this bloody looking.
So if you like Halloween, that could be fun.
Yes, and it's delicious. It calls for potatoes. Now the potatoes do not freeze well. The rest of it does.
Yeah. So you have, but you can put the cooked potatoes in the refrigerator though.
Yes.
So the name of the recipe book is Be Green with Amy's recipe book. If you don't like flavor, don't get this book.
Don't buy this.
Don't buy this book. If you don't like flavor, because we're originally from New York, so we have to say it that way,
Flavor.
How about if you like flavor, get this book.
Okay, you could do that too. You like that better?
I think so, because it's not, or I just call it flavor.
So we can change it.
We can change it because it's an ebook, guys.
Flavor by Be Green with Amy. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Flavor. No,
we can't do that. No, we can't do that one. Does anybody else have a question?
I'm not. Well, not a question, a comment. Stephanie says you guys have to come back and do a Halloween show. If you have any, I'm booked through March, but maybe we could do a bonus show. Do you guys have any special costumes? What do you guys like to be for Halloween?
Last year I was Superman.
Yeah, he had a Superman apron. But we have been, one time we were.
In fact, I should have worked for that.
We were. I think I was a kite.
She was a bunny. We were Smurfs.
Yeah, we were Smurfs.
Every year has to be different.
Every year, yeah.
But Amy has a YouTube channel, and she has a bunch of YouTubes up, and we'll probably do the borscht recipe for October. For Christmas,
yeah, we'll probably do that just to make it fun and spooky.
That's
a great idea. Yeah.
But we'd love to come back because he's always developing new things and new recipes, and we really we want to show people that.
We want to share this with everybody because I mean I was fat, sick, and nearly dead, just like they said.
When do you anticipate the ebook being ready?
Probably
a couple of weeks.
In a week or two.
Yeah,
wow,
it's almost there.
It's there.
We have a daughter who's a photographer, graphic artist,
and she does voiceover. She's the one that does voiceover for my live videos. She's really talented.
And I gave her all the rest of my son typed up a bunch of them. My daughter did the rest of them, and she's doing all the graphics and putting the book together inside of this thing. So
yeah,
it should be ready soon.
I think it's the cover that she's working
on. I want more and more recipes inside of that, but you have to stop somewhere and then just continue.
Yeah, we're not just going to put any old recipe. We want to put something in there that when we sat down to eat it, we said, "Wow, if we were in a restaurant, I wouldn't even order this again." That's the kind of recipes that we wanted to include in the book, and that's what we were very careful to do that. And then we also wanted to make sure that they were kind of tested so that they work for people. And that's a great thing also, you know, it's.
I like easy recipes where that if you don't measure perfectly, they still come out good, you know? Because I'm a dump kind of guy. I'm not really a measurer. I'll be like, that's enough. Yeah, that looks good. You know, a little bit more of this, and then I'll taste it, and I'll try a little bit more of this, a little
When
bit
he
more of
was
that.
making these recipes and like how he cooks, I'd say, well, we have to put a measurement. He'd
Yeah.
say, well, so what I would do is I would take a piece of printer paper and I would put it over whatever he was dumping the stuff in, and I'd say, okay, dump. And then I would take it and then I would pour it into a measuring spoon or a cup, and then that's how I knew how much he would put in.
Because she kept saying, write it down. I said, well, I'm not really sure how much I use.
Right. Everything is pretty.
Because I just pour it out of the jar. It's like
Yeah, he just pretty much dumps it.
garlic,
And that's what's nice.
onion.
Is that the recipes are really forgetting it if you're not exactly, you don't exactly do it right. And with this lifestyle, you can taste it. You don't have to wait for it to be cooked.
And I get myself inside trouble sometimes. It's like I'll take that onion. I'm like, well, I should only use a quarter or a third of it, but I'll throw the whole thing in, or you know. And then it's like, oh, it's got a little bit too much of this, too much of that. So I have to adapt and throw some other stuff in. And a lot of my recipes are a combination of leftovers. So I'll have stuff that I cooked the day before inside the refrigerator, but I want it exactly the same. So I made a little bit of something else and I added to it. So the third version of whatever I started with turns out to be the most delicious. And she's like, well, what's the recipe? I'm like, I can't give you a recipe.
I know that's tough. People don't realize that's how people really cook. So that's very clever though, having the paper there. Maybe you can call the book Dump or Take a Dump with Rick. Rick, Susanna says, from your reputation as the griller and baker, how are your family and friends handling your change in diet? And you look great too, Amy.
Well, thank you. I tell you.
I had a couple of friends. We used to live in Kansas City, and then we went back for just a vacation or a visit. And I saw a couple of guys that I used to work with, and they looked at me and they said, "Are you okay?" Because I had lost so much weight, they didn't even recognize me, for one. And then they thought that I was sick. They thought that I had cancer or something like that.
Yeah, they were really concerned about it.
But I was before I built up more muscle. I had injured myself. I had shoulder injuries and elbow injuries, and I went through a lot of different things: back, knees.
Yeah.
And then beyond the blood pressure and the cholesterol and everything, I'm not on anything, and everything is pretty much fine now. But I had lost a lot of muscle mass because
He was recovering.
I was recovering from surgeries and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was losing weight while I was doing all those things, which was, thank you, Chef AJ, for that.
Yes.
Mhm.
But it's amazing because you have the people that used to know you and then see you, and then that's like they always say, oh, they weren't worried about you when you were 100 and whatever pounds overweight. They didn't ask you, are you okay? Then
Now they think I look great. In fact, they last year we did a Zoom call for my birthday. So unbeknownst to me, my daughter had contacted all of my friends, family, relatives. So they came on in
phases,
like 2.5 hours of Zoom calls.
Yeah.
20 minutes for each group.
She's a Zoom facilitator, so this is what she does for a living. So she made it very nice.
And these people didn't even, they were like, where's Rick? And I was sitting right there in front of it. Where's Rick?
They thought that he was just some
They
guy
thought
in
that
the
I was
house.
my son. Because they didn't recognize me. I've lost so much weight, I haven't seen them.
And now
And then they would look you out. You look great.
We look at the pictures from our past and we're like, oh wow. I think that when you're overweight, you kind of try to adapt to it, and you don't really see yourself as over. Somehow, it's so weird the way the mirror doesn't look the same. But then when you do lose the weight and you look at the pictures, you kind of gasp and you say, really? Did I let myself get to that point? Oh my goodness. So it's fun to see the old pictures.
Well, I'm a photographer guy. I really like pictures, so I've been taking pictures ever since the beginning.
Yeah.
In fact, on our first date, she thought I was some kind of a weirdo.
I thought he was a stalker.
Because I did it. I had a little 110 camera
in his glove compartment.
Yeah. And I took a picture of us like that.
Yeah, before selfies, right? He was doing Yeah.
And she thought I was gonna throw her in the river or something.
I
'Cause
thought
we were in New York, right there on East River,
Yeah, and I was
overlooking the
like,
city.
he probably has a whole bunch of these pictures with like red X's on them on his wall of all the women that he stalked or whatever. I thought it was crazy. But anyway, I'm glad that he did because we have all these pictures.
You can watch yourself get younger,
Yes, with this
because
lifestyle.
that's what it's doing. I have
actually,
pictures of
yeah,
me where I look old and I look so much younger and I feel so much better today.
Right. And my mother preserved my wedding dress. I'm like, why are you doing this? I'm so petite. None of my kids are gonna fit in it. They're all taller than me. And then Rick said,
I said, if you get back in your wedding dress, we'll renew our vows.
and it had
Like 6 months later, we were getting remarried.
right, because after we lost the weight, it had like 20 of those tiny little buttons up the back, and the zipper is much easier to squeeze into than buttons. And I was so
She
worried.
could barely get it on.
I was like, oh, there was no way. I wouldn't even try. And I actually fit into my wedding dress and we renewed our vows. And that was just so awesome to wear that wedding dress again. So I'm just really hoping to inspire you guys. You know, you don't have to lose all the weight and be, back like you were in high school. But even if you just lean into this, even if you lose 5 or 10 pounds, people that I talk to that have adopted this lifestyle and they say, I gotta admit, I don't do this 100%, but my energy is coming back. So they report that they're starting to feel better. So even if you can't do it all the way.
Amy's counseling one of my buddies in Kansas City right now.
Yeah.
He's got
He has a lot of health issues, and
anyway,
he has a diet.
he's been eating like the way we do, kinda, not really.
Yeah.
But a lot more greens in his diet. And he says, I have so much more energy. They cut back on my prescription medicines. And it's only been a month and a half.
And he's not doing it 100%.
He's lost like 30 pounds.
Right, yeah.
I mean, amazing.
So we hope
such
that
a
you
short
guys
period of time.
are inspired to just.
And he's like 72.
Right, it's not too late. So even if, if you're just curious about this or you haven't tried it, or just take it up a little notch, and you'll see. And just ordinary people like us can really enjoy this lifestyle and get younger and have good health and not, I had in my genes for type 2 diabetes and all kinds of rheumatoid arthritis my grandmother had. I was really worried because I saw my future, and it's just wonderful that we.
And I like it too.
Yeah.
Well, guys, you guys are.
Playboy bunny.
Well, I hope you'll include your before and after photo on the ebook. And thank you so much. It's always great having you on the show. Wonderful recipe, wonderful story. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back in 3 hours at 2 p.m. We have a bonus show. We're going to be making Beyond Beef burgers. Dorena Burton has a new book, and I can't wait to see you guys back. Thanks so much.
Remember, be strong, be well, and be
green. Take care, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.